Have you ever heard of the brand Primare before? Well, if not, today you're in luck because I'm going to tell you all about one of their new products, which I find absolutely stupendous. So if you're in the market for a new AVR, audio video receiver, well, they make a thing called the SPA25, and it is really cool. So stick around and I'm going to tell you all about it. To get started talking about the Primare SPA25, I want to dig into it a little bit from a different point of view. I don't want to go straight into the metrics, right? You know, how many watts and how many channels, but what is the reason that you want to buy this thing, right? Because this is a compelling piece of gear, right? It's not, you know, your typical Best Buy big box kind of equipment. This has a feeling to it, right? When I look at this evokes some emotion where you might not get the same kind of feeling out of a kind of a big black box with a flat front and a little display on it, right? This is kind of art in action. And I like it because it lets you have home theater with that art in action, right? So Primare, they've done a stunning job of the design of the box, right? I mean, everything from this knob onto the front to the 3 feet to the little ears that stick up in the back. I mean, it's beautiful. And then the silver, it's stunning, right? It's absolutely gorgeous piece of gear. And that translates into the audio experience, right? So Primare has, you know, at its heart, at its core, is an audio company. And they've taken all of that DNA and put into a piece of equipment that allows me and potentially you to experience that kind of audio excitement in the realm of multi-channel home theater. Digging in, let's talk a little bit about the specs. Now, I don't want to get super deep because we're going to go through a full setup and a full test and all of those things in this video. I want you to understand what the big picture pieces of this are outside of just the aesthetic and the sound quality, right? So this is an 11-channel processor with 9 channels of amplification. So you can do a 7.1.2 or a 5.1.4 with the onboard amplification, and that's 90 by 9. I think it's 900 watts total output if you got everything firing on all cylinders. But this has 11 channels of processing, and 11 channels I think is kind of the sweet spot for the enthusiast, right? So once you go past 11, you get up to like the 16 channel and you're doing like your 4 or 5 subwoofers and all this kind of really cool stuff. But this unit, I think, is for that person who wants to have a very high-end kind of at that edge of going nuts with home theater, but not quite there, but they want that DNA of high-quality sound. So you can do what I consider to be a really good channel mix of 7.1.4. So that's 7 bed channels, your LFE, your subwoofer channel, and then 4 channels of height, and that would be Atmos, right? And for me, like I said, that's a really, really sweet spot. The only caveat here is that you do have to have 2 channels of external amplification to make that happen. Otherwise, you're stuck with the 9 channels of amplification. And if you only need 9 channels, then hey, you're good to go. But if you do want to go for the full Monty, so to speak, with this unit, then you do need 2 additional channels of external amplification. When we set this up, I'm going to run a 7.1.4 system, and I'll show you exactly how I add those 2 additional channels of amplification. So, you know, that's kind of the guts of the unit. And, you know, it does 4K and it does all the different formats of decoding. The other big picture item, though, the other really important one is Dirac Live. You can buy the full range 20 to 20,000 hertz license for 99 bucks and add on to the unit, which is what I've done. And we're gonna go through and do a full calibration in my theater downstairs with all 11 channels that this thing will manage, plus the full range of Dirac. And I'm pretty excited to get that going. So that's high level of what the big features are. Now let's take a look at the front and the rear of the unit so you can see specifically what's going on. The front of the unit is very, very simple. So you've got a long LCD panel here, and this doesn't do crazy high-res graphics. It just is going to have some simple text here for us. And then there are only 4 ways to interact. You've got your volume knob, and I love this volume knob. It looks like it's billet aluminum. It is really nice, and it is more than 1 inch long. I mean, it's getting out there, so you can really grab onto this thing. Then you've got your power button here and then some selectors here. And that's it. Now, I do want to point out, if you look at the top here, you can kind of see how they've designed this with a gap all the way around this front panel. It's really, really beautiful. And then the top of the unit and sides are perforated for some airflow, right? So it's got that kind of passive cooling there to let things not get too hot, because this does have 9 channels of amplification. But you know, a very elegant front panel, branded here with the name and then the logo down at the bottom right. Now we're going to take a look at the back, and this is where the magic really takes place. So we're going to start left to right, and we're going to get started with this microphone port. So this is for the microphone for Dirac for room tuning. You've got 2 antenna for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, 2 LAN ports, as well as a USB port. RS-232, this is for control, serial control. Then you have a bunch of inputs, your analog in, your RCAs, and they have this labeled for both a multi-channel input as well as 2-channel inputs, so you can use those for whichever you prefer. You also have analog outs. Now you've got your front or your line for left and right, sub 1, sub 2, and center, right? And we will leverage these for 2 additional channels of external amplification when we set this up. Now across the top, we've got the digital in section. So it's got a USB for PC Mac. It's got coax that's labeled digital 1 in, 2 optical digitals in. So SPDIF for D2, D3. Then you have 2 HDMI outs, aux, and then your main. And your main is also your eARC, right? Very important. Then you have 4 HDMI inputs, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's see. You'll have a disc player, you'll have Kaleidoscape, and then you'll have your streaming device, and then 1 console. So that's what I'm going to do anyway. Over here, you've got your IR in and out, and then a trigger out as well. All super important. Now, you got this big bank of 9 different channels of amplification. They've got them labeled front, center, surround, height, and surround back. So, you know, it also calls that these are assignable. So it really depends which channels you want to amplify if you're going beyond the 9 and adding the 2 for 11. The other thing to point out here is that there is a sub 1 and sub 2 analog out. I don't believe that these are tuned separately. I believe these are tuned just as a single unit, although I will verify that as we go through this setup together and figure all this stuff out. Okay, now that we've gone over the different ports on the front and back of this device, let's go ahead and get this thing into the rack downstairs. And I'm going to go ahead and start cabling this thing up and figuring out exactly how to make this the heart of my home theater. A quick look at the remote is pretty standard. The one thing to call out here though is that this is set up to manage pretty much all of the different Primare Prisma devices. And the way you do that is you'll select with these buttons here. You've got amp, AV, TV, pre, and CD. And if you want to use amp, you'll hit this button once and you'll get a single light flash there. If you want to use AV though, you need to hit this twice and then the light will light up a lower light and then you'll know you're on the lower line. This one simply has TV, but then you'll want to either choose pre or CD if you need to control those. But very nice multifunction remote control that can control everything from the company. All right, now we're in the basement. We're going to install this in my rack, and please don't laugh at the rat's nest, the cables here, but I'm in and out of this a lot. Now, one thing to note is that this unit only has 3 feet. It has 2 in the front and then 1 here on the center in the rear. That I don't know why it was done that way, but it was done that way, and that's what it is. But this is now going to be where this lives, and I have to figure out how to get all of these speaker wires from down there to up here for this install. Let's talk about the installation of this unit in the rack. Now, this is a little embarrassing because this is a rat's nest, but I have ripped everything apart in the back of my rack, and I want to go over what I've done here. So the documentation says that we should use the front left and front right as the external amplified speakers. So I've used those RCA outs that you can see here that come up to this Acurus M8 amplifier. Now this only takes XLR in, so I use conversion cables, and then I use these little pigtails coming out of the Phoenix connectors to connect the speaker wire. These run out to the speakers through the walls. So that's the left and right. So that's channels 10 and 11, I suppose. And then the 9 amplified channels are down here. And all I did was just plug the speaker wire in, right? And you can see all those. Again, as we all know, it's a beast to get that stuff all together. I also have Ethernet here plugged in, and I'm pretty proud of this little camera. It's doing pretty good in low light because it is dark back here, but it is definitely pulling in some light for us. And then I've got the output, which I believe is this guy. Yep, the output is running over to a MAD-VR, which then goes out to my screen, and then I've got Kaleidoscape as the input here. So that's pretty much outside of power. The cabling for this unit, pretty gnarly back here, but for a test, I think it's going to be just fine.
Let's talk a little bit about firmware. So for the unit itself, it will automatically grab firmware when you turn this thing on. If you want to prompt it to grab firmware, then just do a hard power off and pull the power, then plug the power back in. And when it turns back on, it'll reach out to the world. Make sure you have Ethernet plugged in and grab an update and apply it. When I did my update, it took a long time, like 20 minutes, but it went off without a hitch. On the flip side, if you want to do Dirac update, you need to go and download the Dirac firmware upgrade, and then from a PC, you'll hit the IP address for Dirac management, and you'll drag and drop the upgrade file there, and then that pulls it over and updates that way. So 2 different ways to get firmware. One is completely automatic, and the other takes a little bit of effort, but hopefully you don't have to update Dirac too often on this thing. I've done it the one time, and it was not a problem at all. With the SPA25 set up, let's jump into the menus and take a look and see what we can see here. So as you can see, I've got Kaleidoscape. This is into HDMI 1 through the MAD-VR out to my JVC projector. And let's hit the menu button on the remote. And this is the sum total of this section of settings. And we're going to run through these. One thing that I'll note is that this is not where you would deal with Dirac. That's in another location, and we will cover that one next. But first, there's the concept of presets. So we can go into presets here, and you can set up 17 of these. 17 is reserved for the Prisma input, so really 16 however you want. And in a preset, you can have it on or off. You can name the preset, like I've got this for Kaleidoscape. So if I want to watch Kaleidoscape, I can just select preset 1, and it'll bring me to the HDMI 1 input. It'll use the SPA25 for the audio, and you can see that it allows you to go through and select all of these different items for the specific source that you've got going into the specific HDMI port, etc. Right? And you can do 16 of these. Under speaker settings, we've got your speaker setup, crossover, distance, and level. And this is kind of your traditional setup stuff. So, if you want to set your crossover specifically manually, the distance of your speakers, the level of the speakers, but under speaker setup, you can have presets here. Now, I've gone through it. I've set this up for a 7.1.4 environment. And after I reviewed the instructions, the best idea was to use the front, left, and right pre-out for the external amplification, so I can get the full channel count of processing out of this unit as we discussed before. So what you do is, and you can see I don't have Dirac applied here at all right now, but the front, left, and right amplification channels are now doing the top rear. Center's on, surround left and right is on, subwoofers are on, surround back left and right or surround back. The height is for the top front, and then the height type is overhead. And one thing to point out here, you can do upward firing or overhead in. Overhead is what I've got, so that's what I've got set here. So that's the most important thing. In here, you could potentially set a preset if you wanted to run this in 2-channel mode or 2.1 channel mode, and then name those. Like I would probably name this one theater, right? And then I would create a music one that I might call Rune and set that for just left and right. and subwoofer on and everything else off, right? So you can go through and create these and use the presets really easily. Now we'll go to the audio settings, and this is your default volume, what it's currently at, the maximum. If you want to use double bass, which I don't want to, I'm sending everything to subwoofer right now, which is kind of like the large small concept, late night, and then the speaker mute settings. Video settings here, if you want to have video pass through, so if this is off, it'll go ahead and pass your input. I've got that set to on. You can turn CEC on or off, and then your on-screen display, transparency, pop-up time, and then if you want to see the help contextual menus, and I have those turned on now as well. General settings, front panel I've got it unlocked, so if you push the buttons it actually does something. The front panel auto dim, how long it stays on, the brightness. You could do standby settings here, memory settings, and then your firmware information. We'll go into that, and I've got this updated, at least as far as I know, to the newest of the new. So 2.6.2 on the main, Dirac is up to 2.1.17. On the SP25, I think that's up to a 2.1.18 right now, so it's a little bit ahead, or maybe they just have even an odds for the SPA and the SP. And if you don't know, the SP is just the non-amplified version of this this processor, so it's just the non-AVR, just the processing functionality. All right, and then streaming settings, metadata on, so this will display things when you're streaming, and then you can set passwords for AirPlay, and then your Bluetooth settings, and then finally network settings. I've got this on Ethernet. It does have Wi-Fi. I'm choosing not to use that, as that I do have wired internal Ethernet here, so I've got my Cat 6 plugged in, and hey, there's my internal IP address and the MAC address of these things. So that's all of the settings here. Now the next piece that we want to jump into is Dirac, and we're going to take a look at that right now.
Part of the secret sauce of the SPA25 is Dirac, right? And I want to talk a little bit about that for folks that might not really know much about it specifically, or maybe haven't used it a lot. So the way this is implemented is a little bit different than what you might see like with correction in Onkyo or Marantz or something like that, right? Those units, everything's kind of built in, and you plug a microphone just into the unit, and then it all does it right there. Well, with Dirac, it's a little bit different. So you need to download the Dirac app to your laptop or your PC, and then it's going to talk across the network to the SPA25, and that's going to be the process by which it grabs the measurement data, then pushes back the calibration file to the SPA25, right? And let's talk through that a little bit. So you'll download the tool, and then I bought the upgraded license, which gives me full bandwidth, right? I think the base license does like 20 to 500 hertz or something like that, and then the full range gives you this stuff up to higher, to like 10,000 or whatever. So it's a more holistic tool as opposed to the one that's included. It's $99. So if you can afford the 6,000 or 6,500 for the unit, then probably the $99 is not going to be too much of a strain for you. But if it is, you still get the basic version, which will really handle all of that base information. So let's look at this quickly. Now, to start, you can see up here, you're going to have select device, and I've selected the SPA25. Then you're going to select your recording device. The SPA25 comes with a microphone, so you just plug that into the back of the unit. It's not on the front. The plug is on the rear. So if you've got the rear kind of hidden away, it might be a little bit tough for you. So you got to get to the back panel. You'll drag that around. You can do volume calibration, which I'm not going to go through specifically here, but then you'll get to the select arrangement. And I selected the home wide imaging. So tightly focused is just for one person, and you can see the image here. I think I can, yeah. So tightly focused is like one person. Focused is like one person with a little bit to the sides, and then wide imaging is probably the best for a home theater situation where you've got a wide sofa or a group of sofas. And you can see this gives you the opportunity to deal with 17 measurement positions. But if you just have one command position, that's all you're worried about, then this tightly focused image is the one. And it really is dependent on where your head is too. So this thing is super, super granular. So from there you get to the measurements, and I've already gone through and done all the measurements. And this was on my 7.1.4 system. And then you get to the filter design area. And this is kind of what I want to show. So I am a little new to this myself, but I think I can get most of this through, so you kind of get an understanding of what's going on. So it automatically, from the SPA25, groups your speakers into a group of the left and right, a group for center, your surround left and right, your surround back left and right, sub, and then all of your heights. So you're building targets out for each of those areas, right? And so if we look at our front left and right, you can set your target curve by using these sliders that go up and down. Then here you can view the measured results and then the corrected results. And right now everything's there. So I'm going to take off the target curve so you don't see that. And I'm going to take off the measured. And this is the corrected version, right? And so if you look, this is plus or minus 10 decibels here, and you really want to be in plus or minus 5 decibels. So you can see that we're well within plus or minus 5 decibels in the range for these speakers. And, you know, this is correcting all the way down to 27 or 28.2 on my system, and up to 15.5, which is a nice little spread. And I'm pretty happy that my mains can actually go down that low if I wanted them to. That's pretty cool. But you can see the kind of mess it was before correction was applied. We could look at the center and kind of see the same thing. And, you know, here's the target curve for the center. And you can see it's much nicer without this huge hump down and this huge trough that it was able to deal with. Turn that target back on. So the surrounds, and turn off the measured. And yeah, you see just, it's really gnarly without the correction. I mean, this Dirac is doing super, super heavy lifting here. Same here. Scroll down, a subwoofer. Yeah, subwoofer, people want to play with this a lot. And, you know, my system's pretty capable. You know, I can, you know, measure each of the subs. And I'm doing this with just 2 of my subs in the room. I actually have 4 in production, but for this system, it has 2 outputs on the rear. So I wanted to kind of work within the limitations or what was built into the hardware, not like split stuff up or add in external processing or something like that. So I just used the 2 subs behind the seat, and you know, I listened to some movies with it, and it has done a really great job. I mean, it's pretty exciting. It's I've got a set of 2 double 15s in the back. One Arundel, their big bad boy, and then the Miller Chrysler dual 15 big bad boy back there, and it was moving some earth, and this is kind of what that looks like. So you can see the measured versus the corrected version, and you know, it gets me right down here to, gosh, I don't know, 15 hertz, and then lets it roll on off after that. So I'm pretty happy with that. And it was doing correction up to 300. I pull this down to 200. You can slide these around wherever you want them to, and then recalculate, but I left it at about the 200 range. And then heights will turn off, so you can see my target curve just almost flat, just a variance of less than 3 decibels across. And this is the corrected. This guy right here, not super happy. You see, they couldn't fix all of that, but that's as best it could get to on that guy. And you know, as everybody knows, if you watch my content, my Atmos speakers are not the most optimized Atmos speakers in existence, but they get the job done. And with this correction, they really got the job done. I'll talk about that in a little bit as I talk about my kind of movie watching results. But man, the Atmos was really going off in the room, and it is completely 100% due to the heavy lifting that this software did. And I'm really happy that the SPA25 could deliver from that point of view. To give everything a really thorough test, I watched Blue Beetle, well, and a whole bunch of other stuff actually too, but let's focus on Blue Beetle. Now, the movie itself
was not that good. It really wasn't that good. But this processor, the SPA25, did a really wonderful job with the sound, right? And you know, that's what you get these processors for. You want to have that cinematic sound, that Atmos. You want to have the bass. You want everything popping, and you want it to sound good. And this device absolutely delivered on that. You know, not only does it look good, but it also sounds really, really good. And there are a lot of reasons for that. I want to jump into a few more features before I close this one with my final thoughts. So to recap the basics, the SPA25 has 9 channels of amplification. That gives you 900 watts of output. It's got 4K dynamic HDR switching, eARC, right? That's important if you're going to use this with a display that has a source in it, right? Dirac Live, which is upgradable to the full bandwidth version. It has 11 channels of Atmos and DTX processing, so that when you add that 2-channel stereo amp, you can have all 11 channels just going off. This allows you to live in that 7.1.4 world of goodness with all of the overhead channels. A few more things for the audiophile crowd. So this unit leverages dual 8-channel DACs. That's right, 16 channels of DAC power inside of this unit. You can configure this in biamp mode, and then I'm going to look at these numbers specifically. So you can use this to deliver 145 watts into 8 ohms and 250 watts into 4 ohms in stereo mode. And then when you biamp your main left and right channels, you can supply 290 watts in 8 ohms and 405 watts in 4 ohms. So this thing is crazy when you think about this from a 2-channel point of view. That is a ton of juice when you're biamping out of this unit in stereo mode. One other item that I want to comment on is that this is slated for Rune Ready. I don't know when that's exactly going to happen, but that's going to be really nice when it does come around. For my 2-channel listening, everything has to be Rune Ready. Otherwise, it just doesn't kind of pass the test. And this one is on the road there. So I'm really excited for that functionality coming very soon. Finally, one other item, which is kind of interesting, is the feet, right? So this has 3 feet on the bottom instead of 4. There's 2 in the front and 1 in the rear. You know, when you're working with this unit, don't lean on the rear corners because it can tip up and down. I think it's really interesting the choice for that. I assume it was done for aesthetics, although there might be some reason why 3 feet is better than 4, or that it was needed in this particular unit. But do be aware that there are only 3 feet. So if you look at it, don't say, well, where's my other foot at? There are only supposed to be 3. This now brings me to my final thoughts, and we're going to go over the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the good is that this thing sounds amazing. And with the Dirac, it really, really sounds good. So if you're in that world of looking for kind of that 11 channel zone, 7.1.4, you could do a lot worse than this unit. Now, this is on the premium side of things. You're looking at about $6,000-ish street price for one of these guys. But man, it sounds really, really good. And the setup is pretty easy. The only challenging piece is getting accustomed to the actual Dirac tuning, which is where the magic lives, right? Let's be honest. There's a lot of magic there, but with that magic stacked on top of the nice hardware that's inside of this unit, I think you will have an absolutely stunning experience. That's what I've had. It sounded really, really, really good. Now, let's flip over and talk about maybe things that aren't so good. There was only one item that I came up against that I'm not sure of. I didn't reach out to support on this, and maybe I should have, but I worked through it myself. There's an occasional glitch, and maybe it's just me, but sometimes when I hit play, there's no sound, and I have to do a hard reset on the unit. It's very rare. I've seen it, I think, 2 times, and I don't know, maybe it's an interaction with Kaleidoscape or something else. It might not be anything to do with this unit, but just something to be aware of. If you do get into a situation where you've got this thing set up and you're rocking and rolling, and you turn it on one day and you don't get sound, well, do a hard reboot. That means turn the power off on the back, turn it back on, and then everything is back. So that's really the only challenge that I suffered with the unit. Like I said, I am really, really a fan of this device. Everything from the looks to the sound to the performance to the ease of use are superb. So this comes highly recommended for me. If you're looking for a higher end unit in an 11 channel situation, this is one that you really need to check out. All right, folks, thank you so much for watching. Remember, like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all those things, and I'll see you guys in the next video.